Boys, welcome back to Yerushalmi Shabbos. We are holding Nun Aleph Amud Beis. Now, just to put you in the picture here, we had the Mishnah increases, where Rabbi Kiva asked Rabbi Lezer how many chatos yachayev, and there were two interpretations as to what the case was. We had Rabbi Bar B'Shem Rav Chisda, where you didn't know it was Shabbos, but you knew the malachas were forbidden. And then we also had Rav Zeira B'Shem Rav Chisda and Rav Ila Rav Lakish, and they said you knew it was Shabbos, but you didn't know the malachas were forbidden, right? So there was the argument as to what was the case, what was the scenario where Rabbi Kiva held that you only have one malacha and Rabbi Lezer said you have several. So we're up to here now. Rav Zeira B'Shem Rav Chisda and Rav Ila B'Shem Rav Shimon ben Lakish. This is on Nun Aleph Amud Beis. Yeah, Terei and Amrin, they both said B'Zod and Shabbos Shigas Malachas Shalai, that Rabbi Kiva asked Rabbi Lezer a case where he knew it was Shabbos, he didn't know the malachas were forbidden. Is he chayav chatos? Habashigigas Shabbos v'zadon malachas. So in a case where he forgot it was Shabbos and he knew the malachas were forbidden, which is the case for Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Kiva, based on Rabba's explanation, after Rabbi Lezer Yada Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi Lezer will agree in that case. Rabbi Kiva she'ena chayav ala achas. You only chayav one chatos for every Shabbos that he broke, and therefore Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Kiva didn't discuss that point because there was no argument between them. But then the Gemara says, no, not necessarily. The Mishnah increases. Rabbi Lezer said, and we quoted this, we said, well, Shabbos is more chamor than Nida, because there's many Isurim, many Chiyuvei Chatas, right? 39 types of malachas. And Rabbi Lezer learnt a kavachomer from Nida to Shabbos. And he said, just like a person with a Nida many times, he's chayav many chatais. If you break Shabbos many times, you're chayav many chatais. Now, if you're going to tell me, this was only a case where there's a shogeg in the malacha, but he agreed that you're not chayav only one chatos if it's a shogeg on Shabbos. If that was the case, v'yitivine Rabbi Kiva could have answered back Rabbi Lezer, and he would have said, Harav, but in the case of mezid b'malachos, where you knew all the malachos you're doing were wrong, but shogeg was Shabbos, you made one mistake, you didn't know it was Shabbos, Harav yesh bo chatos haba, v'chatos haba. So then you're going to have, even with Shabbos, many situations, many ofanim of Isur. Va'ad moedeli, and you still agree to me, she'ena chayav ala achas. You still agree to me, you only chayav one. But since you're telling me where it's shogeg Shabbos, you only chayav one, the fact that there's many situations which you have Shabbos, that's not a chiyuv, that's not reason to mechayav a separate chatos for every avera of chilul Shabbos. And the kavachomer which Rabbi Lezer brought falls apart. And it could be you're not chayav only one chatos, even in a situation of shogeg malacha. Now Rabbi Kiva didn't say that to him. Mimada lo masimle. The fact that Rabbi Kiva didn't say that to answer back Rabbi Lezer. Hadar Amra, this tells me here, Hadar. Basically it tells me the din of shogeg Shabbos, where it's mezid on the malacha, is the same as Zadon mezid on Shabbos and shogeg of malacha. Whichever way round it is, Rabbi Lezer says you're chayav many chatos in both situations. Rabbi Lezer will make no distinction whether the mistake was in Shabbos or the mistake was in the malacha. Okay, you with me? Rabbi Bar B'Shem Rav Chisda. Now the other way of learning the argument between Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Kiva was B'Shigigas Shabbos of Zadon Malachas Shabbos. The whole question was, you didn't know it was Shabbos, you knew the malachas were forbidden. And Rabbi Kiva asked Rabbi Lezer how many chatais. And where a person forgot it was Shabbos, he knew the malachas were forbidden, is he chayav a separate chatos for every Shabbos? So the implication is, if the mistake was the other way round, where the mistake was in the malachas, but you knew it was Shabbos, then in that case, then after Rabbi Akiva Yoda, now the other way round, Rabbi Akiva would agree, Rabbi Lezer, the implication is Rabbi Akiva will agree you're chayav every malacha. He will agree to Rabbi Lezer that you're chayav a separate chatos for every malacha. Okay, now v'yitivine. Now again, the Gemara says, wait a minute, because the Mishnah increases. Rabbi Kiva again comes back on Rabbi Lezer from Nida. There's a chumrah Nida which you don't have on Shabbos. A person with a Nida, right? There are two people involved. Where therefore the chayav, a case of someone who breaks Shabbos, is only one person involved, and therefore Abba Nida you're chayav many chatais. That doesn't mean breaking Shabbos you'll be chayav many chatais, because Nida is two people, Shabbos is only one. Now if Rabbi Kiva agreed that there would be many chiyuvei chatas in a case of shogeg malacha, V'yitivine, now the other way around. V'yitivine, Rebbe Lezer could have come back to the Taina of Rebbe Kiva, and he could have said, Harei mezid b'Shabbos, if someone intentionally knows it's Shabbos, for shogeg melachos, he didn't know the melachos, Harei ein bo ela azhara achas, there's basically only one warning, there's only like one warning, it's Shabbos today, that's the only thing you have to warn the person, right? It's mezid, it's mezid Shabbos, shogeg melachos. So there's only, he says here, ein bo ela azhara achas, okay, that's the gist they got, Vad moizeli, and you agree, shul chayav kol achas for achas, you're chayav on every malacha that he's done. So you see that there are chiyuvei chatos for chilul Shabbos, despite, there's only one person involved, but still there can be many chilul Shabbos, many chatos. So therefore we should also paskin that even if the mistake is in Shabbos, you should be chayav many chatos for many breaking of Shabbos. That's what Rebbe Lezer could have said back to Rebbe Kiva. But because of the fact that he didn't say it to him, this tells me that he ador, that basically the dinim are the same. So whether there's a mistake in the melacha or a mistake in the shogeg of Shabbos, Rebbe Kiva always says you're only chayav one. Right? Both situations. Whatever the mistake was, Rebbe Lezer says you're chayav many, Rebbe Kiva says you're chayav one. Now, back to asking against Rebbe Lezer, based on the various interpretations of that Mishnah. Now remember, there were two sides to understand what the argument was. Was it a shogeg in Shabbos or was it a shogeg in Malacha? Now back to Rabbi Chista. They said the mistake was in Shabbos. The shogeg at Shabbos was Zodan Malacha Shalom. That's when Rabbi Kiva asked Rebbe Lezer. Where he didn't know it was Shabbos, he knew the Malachos are forbidden. Is he chayav a separate chatos for every Shabbos? And Rebbe Lezer answered him, he's chayav many chatos. Now surely the Kavanah Rebbe Lezer wants to say he's chayav a separate chatos for every malacha of every Shabbos. Yeah? Every chatos for every malacha of every Shabbos. So if you ploughed and you sowed and you reaped on one Shabbos, and you do the same the following week, you should be chayav 6. Now, now surely, the main chiyuv to bring a chatos is because of his Shabbos mistake. Yeah? He didn't know it was Shabbos, he did 3 malachas today. Right? How many mistakes has he really made? He's got one mistake, because he didn't know it was Shabbos today. We're talking about a case where he's mazed as far as the malachas. He knows that these are malachas forbidden on Shabbos. The only reason is chayav a chatos, because he made a mistake as far as Shabbos. He didn't know it was Shabbos today. So in a case where he did many malachas, because he didn't know it was Shabbos today, why should he be chayav a separate chatos for every malacha he did? Because surely all his actions were done in one period of forgetfulness of a shogeg of Shabbos. Basically, he's got one mistake. He forgot his Shabbos today. So why is he chayav 3 chatos for 3 malachos when he's only done one mistake? Now the Gemara now comes back to the understanding between Rebbe Lezer and Rebbe Kiva in the Mishnah, and he brings another interpretation to Rebbe Kiva's question. So until now we had 2 interpretations. Did he ask about shogeg Shabbos or shogeg malacha? Now we have another third one. Rebbe Chizkiya b'shem Rabbah, Shtayim Shalai. Rebbe Kiva asked him 2 questions. He asked him shogeg b'Shabbos mezid b'malachas, that way round, when the mistake is Shabbos. And basically, does the weekday break up? Is it like a yediyah between the sins of one Shabbos and the next? And because of that, you'll be chayav on each Shabbos he broke, because it's like there's a yediyah in between. He must have found out what day of the week it was in between. And also he asked him, mezid b'Shabbos, you knew it was Shabbos, but you didn't know the malachas were wrong. Shogeg b'malachas. Do we treat the subsidiaries, the tributaries, right, as the main Av Malacha as well? Is it like a separate Av? And you'll be chayav a separate chatos for every Talda that was done. Just like you're chayav a separate chatos for every Av that was done, when the person did it, he didn't know it was forbidden. Should be chayav a separate chatos for every Talda that was done. This is what we're saying. Okay. Aro Yaakov as the Saya. The Tanei to base Rebbe came. The Mishnah Krisus was learned to base Medrash of Rebbe. And he tells us something which Rebbe Kiva asked was in both cases. He says, yeah, that's right. Rebbe Kiva asked both questions. Okay, you with me? Look at this. He does many malachas on many weeks. Me'en malacha achas. That means they're toldos of one Av. And he does it behel amachas, one period of forgetfulness. Mal, what's the din? Is he chayav achas al kulam? He's done many toldos of one Av. On many weeks. Is he chayav one chatos? Or achas kol achas v'achas. Maybe it's chayav one for each one. And the Mishnah says he did many malachas, and he did it on many weeks, and it was me'en malacha achas. So malachas harbe, many malachas me'en malacha achas, coming from one. Hadai, this is the case where he was mezid b'Shabbos b'shogeg b'malachas. He knew it was Shabbos, he didn't know the malachas. So the Kiva's question was, are you chayav separately for every talda that was done from the same av? And the Lashon Shabbos is habe me'em malacha achas, many Shabbos, all like one malacha hadahi. This is a situation where a person was shogeg b'Shabbos. He didn't know it was Shabbos, or mezid b'malachas, but he knew the malachas were wrong. So the question of Akiva was, are we mechayev him separately for every Shabbos he broke? And the Mishnah tells us Rabbi Akiva asked this on two aspects. That's the way Rabbi Chizki explained it. He's asking it on two things, right? Where it's many toldas of one av. He's also asking shogeg, shogeg Shabbos is haba, shogeg mezid Shabbos, shogeg mamlachas. So he's asking him everything. The wording of the Mishnah doesn't fully fit in according to this pshat. Is there a separate chiyuv for every tolda from the same av? And even Rabbi Bar's pshat, is there a separate chiyuv for every Shabbos? Doesn't really fit in the wording. Why he mentioned it, okay. He says here, we've said earlier on, everyone agrees Rabbi Akiva was asking maybe two things. But Rabbi Yaakov Adessa is saying, the Lashon Rabbi Akiva and the Mishnah, the two matters mentioned support the Hesper in our Mishnah. Okay. But there's a separate chiyuv for every talda. Shigas malachas. Alright, let's move on. How we fit it into the Mishnah, the various Lashonis, whatever. Shabbos Zabe Memelach Zadai, Shaking Malach Zizim Malach. So where are we now? Yeah, 1 second. Where are we? Harav Zira. Is that it? Sorry, I just lost it. 1 minute. Last time Shabbos Memelach Madin. Yeah, we're up to note 11. Yeah. Harav Zira we're up to, yeah? Yeah?
Okay, mine considers V'loim Shom Shkados.
Yeah. Harav Zira. Now we come back to the previous discussion to ask on the Svara Belezer. We're asking on the interpretations of Rav Zeira and Rav Ila. Rav Zeira b'shem Rav Chisda. You got it? Rav Ila b'shem Rav Shimon Lakish. Trei Amrin, they said Bezad and Shabbos Shingas Malachos Shala. The question was, well, you knew it was Shabbos, you didn't know the Malachos were forbidden. And Rav Belezer says, you chayav many chatzos. Now surely, it's talking about a separate chatzos for every malacha he did, for each Shabbos that he broke. Yesh Adam is chayav. Can a person be mechayev a chatzos ala zardan and avera is done by mezid? How can that be? In our case, you were mezid as far as Shabbos. How can you anyway be chayev a chatzos? Because of a shogeg of malacha, if you're mezid on Shabbos, how can that be? The shgaga is one helam on all the Shabbos. Why are you mechayev a separate chatzos for one Shabbos for all the Shabbos he broke? He wasn't shogeg with the Shabbos really. So how can you be chayev chatzos? He says, you know what? We apply. He's shogeg for the malacha. We apply that to Shabbos, even though he knew it was Shabbos. He's chayev on every malacha he did. But doing the same malacha a few times in many weeks is like doing many different malachas. Because the guf of the Shabbos, which was broken, gives a chashivas. The fact that he did it so many times gives each malacha chashivas. Therefore, he's chayav chatas, a separate chatas for every Shabbos that he broke. That's what he's saying here. Although he's a shogeg on Shabbos, but because we're putting the shogeg malacha on the zadon of Shabbos rather. So doing the malacha a few times makes it important. And therefore the guf of each Shabbos gives a new chatas that comes about. Well, now also we can ask the previous question. Reb Eliezer, based on Reb Bar's explanation, why does Reb Eliezer hold shogeg Shabbos yachayev a separate chatas for each malacha? Similarly, we can say shogeg b'Shabbos, where you didn't know it was Shabbos, amazing b'malacha. And nice and shogeg Shabbos, you put the shogeg of Shabbos on the malachas you've done. To be chayav you for each malacha you've done. Each malacha is an issa in its own right, as far as chiyuv chatas. So the shogeg of a person as far as Shabbos, that is obligating him v'chatas because of chilul Shabbos, and that caused him to do many yisurim, and that's why he's chayav to bring a separate chatas for each one. So you hear that? We're applying the shogeg of Shabbos onto the malachas to chayiv a separate chatos for each thing that he's done. Okay. The Mishnah increases. Rabbi Lezer approved his din. He approved his case. You have many chatos in various cases of Chil Shabbos. This is kavah chayma from Nida. Yeah. But Lezer Rabbi Lezer. Now, does Rabbi Lezer not hold that which learned in the pasuk with Chiyav Chatos? It says va'asa ma'achas mahina. We quoted this before, and we darshan me'achas lechayev al kol achas va'achas to be mechayev chatos for every Chil Shabbos. Now he must hold that, but he learns it kavah chayma. So you don't need this drasha then. He learns it from a kavah chayma. So you don't need this me'achas. So what does he do with this drasha? Sha'ashkach tani, we found a brayso of Rabbi Lezer. If someone, a guy, forgot the whole existence of Shabbos, he broke many Shabbos, he comes out of captivity, he remembers about Shabbos, chayav al kol achas v'achas, is chayav for chatzos for every Shabbos that he broke. Now, we can't learn that from a kavah chayma, because a person who's ba'al nida many times chayav chatzos, that's only if he knew about the Issa nida, but he thought, oh, the woman's permitted. That's the case of nida. So Rabbi Lezer can't learn from Dinei Nida for someone who forgot the whole situation of Shabbos. That is Chayav Melech HaTais. That, we need a drosha, we need a source for that. So he uses that Me'achas. Okay? Now, back to the din in our Mishnah. Now, in the second case of the Mishnah, someone thought it was a weekday. He knew what he was doing is malachos which have been on Shabbos, and he thought it was a weekday. And the Mishnah says he's Chayav a separate chatzos for every Shabbos. Case number 3. He knew it was Shabbos, but he thought the malachas are permitted on Shabbos. And the Mishnah says he's chayav a separate chatas for every malacha he did. Ma bein meizid with Shabbos for shogeg malachas. So what's the difference between where he knew it was Shabbos, that's the third case in the Mishnah, he didn't know the shogeg of malachas, right? Or ma bein shogeg b'Shabbos and meizid b'malachas. And what's the difference between a case of shogeg on Shabbos and meizid b'malacha? That he's only chayav one chatos and every Shabbos is broken, but not a separate chatos for every malacha. What's the difference between them? So one case, this is again. So what's the difference between meizid Shabbos shogeg malachas, a separate chatos for every malacha, and shogeg Shabbos and meizid malacha is one chatos for every Shabbos he broke, but not a separate chatos. Oh, Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef says. By the way, they say here in the notes, this Gemara seems to go against what we said earlier on. There, Rabbi Lezer held both cases Yochad Melech HaTais, also based on the number of Shabbosos and also based on the number of Melachas. And we said that Mishnah is like Rabbi Lezer. Here the Gemara takes on that in the second case of the Mishnah, there's not a separate Chatas for every Malacha. Okay? It seems that our Gemara here now argues on the sugya above, and it holds that Rabbi Lezer is the one. Might be the view of Rabbi Lezer. Or he argues on the whole idea of Rabbi Yosef Chanina. He holds the Mishnah wasn't learned like the view of Rabbi Lezer at all. It also wasn't learned like Rabbi Kiva, because Rabbi Kiva said in the second case you have one chatas, not many. So it could be another Tana. It could be this Gemara goes completely against what the Gemara said earlier on. Anyway, Rabbi Yosef, Velama. Now why? Meizid Shabbos, shogeg malachas, chayav kol achas v'achas. Why are you chayav on each one? You knew it was Shabbos. You did shogeg malachas. Shemayma adlai malacha izu. If you tell me it's malacha, right? You knew it's Shabbos. He'll perish mena. He will stop. V'aisa malachas acheres. He will go and stop and do others which he thinks are permitted, right? What's this? He's meizid Shabbos and he knows it's Shabbos, but he didn't know the malachas were a problem. So if he'll stop, of course he'll stop. And he'll do other jobs which he thinks are permitted. So you have to tell him on each and separate every malacha, stop doing that malacha. So each one is a shogeg in its own right, and he has to bring a chatas. But lava shogeg b'Shabbos and meizid b'malachas ain't a chayav ala achas. Now, if he didn't know it was Shabbos, he does all these malachas, he knows it's Shabbos. One, you tell him it's Shabbos today. Shabbos izu. Miyadu parish, he won't do any malacha. You don't have to tell him on each and every malacha, you just tell him it's Shabbos today. So therefore all the malachas together is one mistake. He's only chayav one. And in the first case, where he knows it's...
That's like a chatas?
For the mistake. The mistake is it's Shabbos. He doesn't know it's Shabbos today.
No, in the previous case.
Shabbos, yeah. So you need to warn him for every malacha.
For every potential warning, there's a potential chatas.
Yes, for every malacha. So therefore, we had a perish. So all the malachas are considered one mistake. You only have one chatas. In the first case, you knew it's Shabbos. The shogeg is connected for the malachas which he's doing. So you see, each malacha is a shogeg in its own right. It's chayv chatas. In the second case, he knows what he's doing is forbidden malachas. The shogeg is as far as Shabbos. Therefore, we look at each malacha as a shogeg. We don't look at it, each one as a shogeg in its own right. It's chilul Shabbos is the mistake. So he's only chayv one. Now, what about Shogag was there? So he breaks Shabbos. He didn't know it's Shabbos. He didn't know the malachas forbidden. What's the din? Do we follow the mistake of Shabbos? So it's chayv one chatas. Or do we follow the mistake of the malachas? It's chayv a separate one. Rabbi Nuna Abayinu chayv alachas. It's only chayv one. Surely it should be chayv a separate chatas. Because in a maze with Shabbos, shaking malachas. Look, let's say he knew it's Shabbos, but it's shaking a malacha, you're chayv in each one. And a chayav akolachas it's not chayav for each one. And just because you've got another shogeg added in, you didn't know it was Shabbos. Shigas Shabbos. Therefore, you should lose ubad shigas malachas. You didn't lose the other shogeg. You should lose the shogeg of malachas. Definitely not. You have to bring a separate chatas for each malach he's done. Rav Yemi Abai Kurub Zira. He said, "Katsa." Now it's a new question. Now, if you cut fruit. Chatzi Gregris, half the amount of figs. B'Shabbos Zu, B'Sodom, Shabbos, Shigas Malachas. You knew it was Shabbos, you didn't know it was wrong to cut. And you only cut half the shit. V'Chatzi Gregris, then afterwards you cut another half, Shabbos Zu, the same Shabbos, but then it was Shigas Shabbos, Zod Malachas. Here the mistake was different. You knew the Malacha, but you didn't know it was Shabbos. So you did half, you cut half with one mistake, and cut the other half with the other mistake.
On the same Shabbos.
On the same Shabbos. So now, Shgaga is by Moshe Safu. Do they join up or not? Do they join up for a Shea Chatas? Do the two halves are considered one Maisa? Or do they say, no, they're two types of mistakes? So Rabbi Yemi's question is based on the idea that Malachas done on many Shabbos, they join up as far as Chiyuv Chatas. Now, it's based on, this idea, Shabbos, separate Shabbos might still join up. But he said, wait a minute, Shabbos is Machalkos, Shabbos is Mistafos. Now, surely you can't say the Shabbos don't join up. If you cut half a fruit, one Shabbos, and then you cut another half the following week, even though it's the same mistake, Shogeg Shabbos, Zod Malachas, each one of the two mistakes actually, if you cut, go back a bit. If you cut a whole share one week, and then the whole share the following week, you'll be chayv two, right? One for each one, So, even though done the Shigas Shabbos, the same shogeg, each one of the shogeg is a separate chatas. So the fact that the two were done on two Shabbos, they don't join up together, right? They're considered separate. You have a separate chatas. So now, are you going to tell me if you did half a malacha on one Shabbos, half a malacha on another Shabbos, the Shabbos will join up? The fact that the Shabbos are separate entities, they don't join up to being joined for one chiyuv. They remain separate. So the Shabbos they can't enable halves to join up to one chiyuv. They remain separate. The half will be part of Ramachatos. So there's no nafkamina in the case of various Shabbosos. Even you're going to tell me that the Shagaga is the same and they should join up. That's all very well if it happened on the same Shabbos, maybe. But Rabbi Yemia's case, it happened each shogeg on a separate Shabbos. So in such a case, the shogegs were not going to join up. So remember, his case was half a fig on one Shabbos with one mistake, and half a fig on the following Shabbos with the other mistake. You hear that? So we say in such a case, there's no way it's going to join up. Even if it was the same mistake, it wouldn't join up. Which also is a different mistake. Definitely not going to join up. Harav. So we find the name of Yeshua the Mishnah, Shetamchuyin Cholkim. That different ways you prepare food of Isur also divide up between various shiurim to be chayav them separately. For example, you got forbidden chalev, and it's been made in two ways. So part of it was roasted, and part of it was cooked. A person ate a share kazayis of the roasted one, and then a kazayis of the cooked one. Right? Even in one period of forgetfulness, you'll chayav a separate chatas for each type of fat. Okay? And even so, tamchuim is darvin. Half a share of a food of Isur, which was prepared in the same way, would join up to another share to be chayav. Every stew, every pot, there's at least a bit of the share lechiyuv. All of them together were considered one, they would join up for a chiyuv chatas. right? If it's the same food in different pots, would all join up. So Huadin, as far as Malachas Shabbos, it could be that Shabbos is separate and divides up between whole Malachas, to be Mechayev on each one separately, but it could be it does not stop half Malachas done on different weeks from joining up. It could be whole Malachas are separate, but halves maybe join up. Just like Tamchoy, you eat half fat in this pot and half fat in that pot, and they join up. Oh, well, Reb Zira said back to him, he said, look, I don't know the reason of Tamchoy. Any day Tamchoy. I don't know the reason why types of preparation of food divide up between fried food and cooked food. I don't know why that is. Even though you're going to join up the half shiurim, there'll be a chiyuv. They will join up. And you're chayav. And every tamchoy, when you eat whole shiurim, and the tamchoyim, they do, the different ones don't join up for a chiyuv. And other foods that shouldn't really join up, even to make a chiyuv. But whatever it is, half share does join with another half share, wherever. So also whole shiurim should really join for one chiyuv if there's many chiyuvim. So he says here there's no nafkamina to the question of Rav Yirmiyah. Rav Yirmiyah is right. Look, half malachas done on separate Shabbos should join up. We shouldn't really divide up separate Shabbos, different malachas to separate chiyuvim. But the fact is, we see that separate Shabbos does divide up various malachas for whatever reason. And therefore the half malachas shouldn't join up to make a chiyuv. Anyway, as the era carries on, Reb Shua himself said that the various pots of food, right, the tamchuim, they sort of divide up. If they're whole amounts, they divide up. Now, he never said that a half share of a tamchui, different ones, cooked and fried, they don't join up. So as far as Shabbos as well, Shabbos, which is separate, will machalik. Let's say a whole malacha, Shabbos will be separate. But they shouldn't join up necessarily a half malacha to make a chiyuv. He says, V'lo mas nisani. Now we see this from the following brisa, because we learned the following. Imagine you write one letter this week. One letter the following Shabbos. Rabbi Lezer says you're Chaim Chatos. Right? Rabbi Yeshua Paiter. Rabbi Yeshua says you're Paiter. Why? Half a malacha done on 2 weeks does not join up. One letter on Shabbos, one Shabbos, another letter on the following Shabbos, is like cutting half a grogros 1 week, half a grogros the following week. And as far as writing, the two half malachas do not join up for chiyuv because they are done on 2 separate weeks. Even if they're done the same type of mistake. How much more so the case of Rabbi Yirmiyah with cutting, where the type of shogeg was different, the act of cutting was different. Rabbi Yeshua will definitely hold the act of cutting will not join up, right? Remember, there was different mistake. So you see, from the din of Rabbi Yeshua himself, half a malacha done on separate Shabbos, even if it's the same type of shogeg, does not join up with chiyuv. So therefore, half a share of forbidden ma'acholos, forbidden foods, prepared in different pots, is definitely not going to join up with chiyuv. Now, we're going to push away Reb Zira's proof. Reb Zaria Kumi Rabbana, Tifto, it could be where you wrote the 2 letters Bezadain. Basically, you knew it was Shabbos. You didn't know the writing was forbidden, but you knew it was Shabbos. You knew it was Shabbos each time you wrote one letter. Therefore, we look at it as if it's a separate entity. And therefore, the separate Shabbos stop everything joining together. And therefore, you're potter from patas. But maybe in a case where you didn't know it was Shabbos, when you wrote the 2 letters, and you wrote them in one period of forgetfulness, it could be the act of writing will join up lechiyuv and it will be treated as one, despite the fact that it happened on many separate Shabbosos. So maybe we have a question with the situation of Rabbi Yirmiyah, where half of the malacha was done on Zada and Shabbos, and the second half was done the following week where the shogeg was Shabbos, so you had different mistakes. Since the second half was done on Shidgas Shabbos, maybe the second Shabbos does not divide between the 2 halves, and the second half will join up with the first half, despite the fact it was a separate mistake. Maybe the 2 mistakes will join up. Half 1 week where you didn't know the malacha was forbidden, and half the other week where you didn't know it was Shabbos. But maybe they'll join up. But Ramona said back, he said, like Hashekenu, surely half of malacha and shogeg Shabbos is not going to join up. Because my mazada and sheina cholek, where you knew it was Shabbos. That the Shabbos does not distinguish and machalek and malacha shlema for separate kiyuvim, where you knew it was Shabbos. right? We just join them to one chiyuv. You knew it was Shabbos. That's the third case in my Mishnah. Zoltan, you knew it was Shabbos, you didn't know the melachas. Where separate Shabbos don't divide up the melachas to separate chiyuvim. No. We join them for one chiyuv. All the melachas of a few weeks will be one. Einav is tarif, and that we're saying that the Shabbos which are separate don't join up half a melacha lechiyuv. We're not going to start adding on halves. Let's see this again. Sorry. Like hashkenu, my mazadon she'ena cholek. So a case of Masechet Shabbos and shogig melacha, right? Where the Shabbos don't sort of divide up when you've got separate chiyuvim. If you do the same melacha a few weeks, you still only have one. And yet, Einav is tarif, and he holds the separate Shabbos don't join up the halves either to make a chiyuv. So Shagaga Sheicholekes, where it was a shogig in Shabbos, where the Shabbos are separate as far as separate chiyuvim, where you had a mistake on shogig, you knew the melachas what you're doing, but you didn't know it was Shabbos. We're saying each Shabbos is separate, and you're going to have separate melachas for each chiyuv. Then, like Hashken Shalai Distav, how much more so that we shouldn't start joining up half shiurim and so on. If where the Shabbos is definitely separated, if already you're gonna, but yeah, basically if your mistake was Shabbos, let's go back up again. Yeah, if your mistake was Zoda and Shabbos, we're saying your malachas were going to join up to be considered one, then how much more so that where your Shabbos is already considered one, and it's Zoda and Shabbos, nevertheless we're dividing up the half shurim. So in a case where your Shabbos is machalkos, the whole malachas are complete separate, that's Shigyas Shabbos, where you have in each one, how much more so we should divide up the half shurim. They shouldn't join up. They shouldn't join up because even the Shogeg Shabbos, where we're dividing it all up as far as everything else, but the half shurim shouldn't join up. See that last bit again? In a case where the Shabbos is separate and you're joining the malachas, that's Zod and Shabbos, we're saying, you only have one for each type of malacha. And yet he himself holds the Shabbos distinguishes as far as halves. So in a case where Shabbos is separating it out, how much more so the Shabbos should be separate as far as a half malacha. And Ramona concludes, like Zehira, there's no real halachic thing from this from Rav Yirmiyah. The half malacha which is done on separate Shabbosos, even if it's the same type of shogeg, they do not join up for chiyuv. Or Rav Hanani said, Lo yamakein. Rav Yirmiyah did not say this to ask a case of two Shabbosos, two separate Shabbosos. That's clear that since separate Shabbosos divide up even between a whole malacha, so half shiurim, definitely on separate weeks, they're not going to join up. So what was the question then? He says like this: Kodsa chadsi grogos b'shachris. Imagine he cut half a fig in the morning intentionally, b'zad and Shabbos shigos melachos. B'chadsi grogos ben abayim, he cut another half in the afternoon the same day with a different mistake. B'shigi Shabbos of b'zad and melachos. So it's a different mistake on the same day in the afternoon. Shagaga shabai or shagaga shabai mavshu stafu. Do we put together the two types of mistakes to mechayiv him to bring a chatos? Are the cuttings of two half shiurim one ma'aser which mechayiv chatos because they'll both cut b'shogeg? Or do we say no? They're two types of mistakes, so they don't join up?
It also wasn't the halamachas.
What? It may have been. Well, I don't know if it was or it wasn't. It probably was.
You said shachris and harvest.
Yeah, I don't know if it was or not. Let's see. Now here, this fits in the girsa. Rav Zira answers Rav Yirmiyah. If you cut a whole shear in two types of shogeg, the two shogeg would be separate, and you'd have to bring two chatos. So in a case where you cut half from each one from a separate type of shogeg, they're definitely not going to join up to chatos. Rav Yirmiyah answered back when he brought this case of the pots or the food, where you've got a whole share is considered separate, but you eat half a share of this pot and half a share of that pot, and they join up. And Zehira pushed away the taina by saying in the case of Tamchuin, well, maybe Tamchuin is different, but the half shiurim maybe don't join up. So Ramona said, Afagad Delam Rabbi Yosef HaMilsa. Now it's a similar question. This is about eating kodshim b'tumah b'shogeg. Afagad Delam Rabbi Yosef HaMilsa. Rabbi Yosef didn't discuss this question about putting two types of shogeg in Chilul Shabbos. He did say something similar. Now, this is two types of mistake with one avera. Let's see. A person who's tummy, and he ate kachim, chatzi zayis b'dias hakodesh, v'helam tumah. So he ate half of the zayis of kachim, where he knew it was kachim, but he didn't know it was tummy. That's one type of mistake. V'chatzi zayis, he ate another half of zayis, v'helam hakodesh, v'dias hatumah, where he knew it was kachim, but he didn't know it was tummy. So it was the other mistake. Again, it's a similar idea, right? Half gazais with one mistake, half gazais with the other mistake. And then now helam shabai malchut stuff. Do the two types of mistake, do they join up or not? To bring a carbon out of a yored? Are they considered one Masechet Shalem because they ate them both for shaking, or maybe they're two types of shaking? Now the Gemara brought a Mishnah increases. Where Rebbe Lezer said, you do all these malachas on Shabbos, and you do them again, you're chayav chatas for each Shabbos. And Rebbe Lezer proved this from a kavachayim from Nida. If you're chayav a separate chatas for every ma'aser beer with Nida, how much more so you're chayav a separate chatas than every ma'aser chilul Shabbos? Nicha, I understand. Shabbos shebola yimeachol bein time. I understand a separate chatas for every Shabbos, because in the weekday you had weekdays in between, and that separates it out. So you have a separate for every Shabbos. But gabe nida ma'izlach, how can you divide up every beer with a nida? How can you divide that up? They all happen behelam echad. You should be chayav one chatas for all the averas. Why you chayav a separate chatas for every beer? So he answered, Tifta benida katana. We're talking about a nida zava katana. Shabala, you may have siktara by time. She became tired in between. Right? After she went into mikvah, she became tired. She became zava katana again. Then was with her again without realizing she was zava the first time. So there was like hefsek tara in between. So it's like the same idea as the weekdays in the middle of the week. You see? Why are we talking about zava katana? We could have said it with any nida, basically the same idea. If Meister nida is separate by Yimei Tahara, then you'd be chayav a separate beer. And the Bavli actually gives that answer. That stam nida. Each beer is a separate beer because there's tara in between. So some leave out the word katana over here. Some say nida katana. It doesn't mean zava katana. It means a normal nida who was a katana. She was less than 12 years old. And the Kavachoyma in Mishnah Krisis is a case of nida who was a katana. Okay, let's carry on. You carry on, yeah? Now, just 1 second. Right. Okay. Based on Mishnah Krisis, Rabbi Kiva said, are you chayav many chatais on many chilul Shabbos? And Rabbi Lezer said, yes, you are. And he proved it with Kavachayim from Nida. Now we bring a brisa, which has got a different girsa in the discussion of Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Kiva. And Rabbi Kiva asked, are you chayav many chatais on many beers of Nida? That was the question now, on Nida. And Rabbi Lezer says, yes, you are. And he proves it with a Kavachayim from Shabbos. So not Shabbos a Kavachayim from Nida, but Nida a Kavachayim from Shabbos. This is a different version. Rabbi Lezer of Shimon over, Kach Shalai. This is what Rabbi Kiva asked Rabbi Lezer. Right, a person with a nida, 5 beelas in one period of forgetfulness. Ma was the din. Chayav achas al kulam. Is he chayav a chatos on all of them? Or maybe achas kalachos, maybe one chatos for every beer. Amal, he says chayav a kalachos for achas. You're chayav on each one. We go on kavachayma. Shabbos, there's only like one warning. You have to be careful with Shabbos. Shabbos doesn't have to be careful from you, right? It's you. You're chayav as each thing. Nida, where there's 2 people, you are muzah on the nida, nida is muzah on you. Ain't a day you should be chayav on each one, right? This is the discussion I'm just going, right? Then Rabbi Kiva says no, because Shabbos has got many different chatais, as opposed to nida doesn't have so many chatais. Then Rabbi Lezer said, well, what about a person with a katana? Doesn't have so many chatais, and it's chayav for each one. Rabbi Kiva said no. It's all very well with a katana, because they're separate, gufin muchlaka, they're separate people. Rabbi Lezer said to Rabbi Kiva, a person with a behema will show you. It's not separate gufim, and you're chayav on each one. And Rabbi Kiva said, the behema is like nida. So that was the whole discussion there. So it comes out, the Rabbi Lezer brings it in, that there's a separate chitz or chatos for every chil Shabbos to prove there's a separate chil for every beer. So he says, in the case of nida, it's doing the same meiser of the first avera. Now, doing a beer with a nida, same mice, exactly the same. It's not the same as doing various malachas on Shabbos or breaking many Shabbosos. It's like a case where the person did the same malacha, kaitzer and then kaitzer, on the same Shabbos in one period of forgetfulness. The kashya, where you can ask, ilu katza if you went and cut some fruit on Shabbos, and you cut more fruit, one period of forgiveness, you only chayav one. So there's no yesod in Shabbos to say a bal and nida many times, you should be chayav separate chatos. Because if you do the same halacha a few times, one period of forgiveness, you only chayav one. Now, the question on this version of Rebbe Lezer is based on the idea that if you do the same avera many times, you only chayav one. Now, you could have said, Rebbe Lezer argues on this, and he says, no, maybe you're chayav many times. The Gemara brings you a proof that Rebbe Lezer doesn't say that he actually holds you only chayav one. Rebbe Achav Shem Chanina, Kain Rabbana Magshele. This is what Rabbana asked. Like Kain Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Vav B'Shem Rabbi Yasmin Chanina. Kol Adayach. They told them all these dinim in our Mishnah. The one who knows it's Shabbos, and you do many balachas, and you're chayav in each one, and that is Rebbe Lezer. Like Rebbe Lezer, the Mishnah increases. But Karabana, according to Chachamim, will argue, and Rebbe Kiva was like them. Eina chayav ala achas. You only chayav one, and all the Shabbos is broke. So if our Mishnah is like the view of Rebbe Lezer, it comes out that the last din in our Mishnah is like his view, that if you do many toldos of one av, definitely if you do the same av many times, you only chayav once. Av hachas here as well, a person is with a niddah many times, la yeh chayav ala achas. You should only be chayav one. That's like Rebbe Lezer. Rabbi Yosef Kiyante, well, I had a girsa of Rebbe Lezer of Shimon, like the view of Rebbe Lezer, Kai Da'ama, like we said, Rav Achav Hashem Rav Chanina, that the view of Rebbe Lezer does not fit in like the last din in our Mishnah. If you do many toldas from one av, you only chayav one, less kain ela karabonon. This is like the Chachamim who argue on Rebbe Lezer. That is Rebbe Kiva. He's saying, I learned that the last part of the Mishnah is Rebbe Kiva. According to Rebbe Lezer, if you do many toldas from one av, you'll be chayav many chatais. With this, you understand why he said a person with a niddah many times is chayav many chatais. And Rabbana de Kisrin, V'Shem Rab Nisa, they said in the name of Nisa, Kol Hada Echasa. All this din is a yesod for the Gis Rab Lezer of Shimon on this din, like the din that goes back on the same malacha. You do the same malacha one Shabbos, chayav many times, and that is Rebbe Lezer who. That fits in only according to Rebbe Lezer. Because the whole din comes from this din, that Baal and Nid at the same time, few times, he's only chayav many times. That's only fitting in according to Rebbe Lezer. According to Rebbe Kiva, he argues on that yesod. He says if you do the same malach on Shabbos, you only chayav once. And he will argue also on what Rebbe Lezer concluded with Niddah. He will say a person who's with a niddah many times is only chayav one, right? Rebbe Kiva will say chayav one, Rebbe Lezer will say chayav many. And Rebbe Nisa holds, Rebbe Lezer and Rebbe Kiva argue, if you're chayav on the same malacha a few times, or you do many toldas from the same av, are you chayav many chatais or just one? So the end of our Mishnah, which says you chayav one, will be like Rebbe Kiva and not like Rebbe Lezer. And that's where Rebbe Yosef explained it. So the questions on the girsa of the words Rebbe Lezer, basically we don't have any questions against Rebbe Lezer because that's not like Rebbe Lezer anymore. Because Rebbe Lezer holds you chayav many chatais even if you do the same malach again and again. And he can therefore say, you chayav haba chatais, the person is with a niddah, same niddah, you'll be chayav many times as well. To be continued, Rabbi Isai.